Okay, so Preston, now let's get on to the next segment, and you're going to tell me the top 12. Did you say 12 or top 10?
12. I think I have 12. We decided like we're gonna one up Nostalgia Critic, who always does his top 11. So we're gonna have an
He
even dozen.
he likes to go one step beyond. We're gonna go even one step beyond
One
that.
step beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're turning. It's like one step beyond Spinal Tap. You know, turning this up to 12. That's where we are.
And guys,
Have you ever seen This Is Spinal Tap? It's pretty before your time. I'm sure you were like not born yet when it came out.
No, I've seen half of it. I know what you're talking about, the amp scene.
Yeah, the amp thing. Yeah, the amp scene. Yeah.
I'm not that young, Jesus. Okay, so before we start recording, you were telling me about the Littlefinger scene that I should have watched. Now, the whole premise here, let me set up for the audience. The whole premise here is Preston's going to tell me his top 12 things he would have fixed with Season 7. I wanted us to do the whole, like, video, but that would be kind of pointless if you think about it now because, you know, why would you watch his video when you could just listen to this? So you're going to tell me, take the top 12 things from your two-parter video. And,
right. There's a lot more. You know, these are kind of the big ones that really I thought would have made a much better season, and the way I kind of fixed it. But looking back through it, I'm like yeah, because I realized that a lot of the video derived from you and me shooting the shit and coming up with these good ideas. So going through it, I was actually, not to toot my own horn, but going through it, I was like, wow, some of these are really good ideas. And I realized a lot of it's from you and me shooting the shit on like what didn't work and then coming up with like something better on our own. So some of these may seem familiar to you because we kind of came up with them together when talking about it, you know?
during the season.
Yeah, during all of our during our 54 podcasts.
I will say this, man. Like there's one scene you came up with on the fly that I hope you include here because some people might not have heard it. The Hound scene where he's trying to dig the grave.
Ah, shit! No, that was a little one, but I didn't even include that. Damn it!
That was you're rewriting that scene was really powerful. For those of you who don't know, so during episode 1, the Hound is trying to dig up the graves for the people he stole food from. And they ended up dying. Like, coincidentally, they find there's the same fucking hut from, like, season 4, and the Hound realizes that him stealing food from those people caused them to starve to death and possibly die. And, your rewriting of the scene was, like, the Hound is just defeated, he's fucking sad about this, and he's trying to dig up a hole for them, but because winter has come, the ground is a little solid, and he can't do it, and he just breaks down. I feel like that would have been a really great, powerful scene had they done it that way.
I mean, and it's kind of funny because like the nitpickers out there were like, I mean, I remember seeing this comment from somebody who was like, dragons, undead, and the most unrealistic thing I've seen so far is someone digging a grave in the middle of winter. And it's true, like you can't dig a grave in wintertime. That would just be impossible. But what's funny is the scene would have been much more powerful had it been realistic. Like him going out there and even metaphorically he can't he can't bury them metaphorically in his brain, and then he can't bury them physically at the same time. You would have that parallel, and he's just broken that he can't even dig into the ground to bury these people, and he just,
Wait, you didn't include the Hound digging thing? You didn't include this in the two-parter videos?
No, I guess I don't think I did. I think I forgot. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. I mean, top 13, I guess. We'll make that the 13th one. But go ahead. Start off. What's the number one? Let's start off with number one. What's the first thing you would change?
Okay. The first thing I'd change is I'd have Danny land in Dorne rather than on Dragonstone. And this solves a lot of things. One, it was really stupid for her to land on Dragonstone when you pass right by Dorne. But, I mean, even that ridiculousness, we didn't utilize the Dornish enough. Yes, people hate the Dorne story, but you introduce them, you've got to use them. They can't just be this pointless thing that just happened in the middle of our story, which is what they are. They're like absolutely nothing significant happened with the Dornish except for killing Myrcella, and you could have just had her die of the flu or something. But so if you have Dany land in Dorne and start there, that would have been better. And then simultaneously, when you eventually take Dragonstone, you take it from Stannis' soldiers, and that way Melisandre can be there on the island, and it's not a mystery of why she would just show up. Like, there's a reason for Melisandre to be on Dragonstone, because that's the last place she can go, because that's the last Stannis stronghold. And it also is a reason why Jon wouldn't have just gone to Dragonstone to take it and things like that. But yeah, that's the first thing, is that she starts in Dorne and her armies march from Dorne. Was kind of the thing, and for that reason, utilize the Dornish, and also give a reason for Melisandre to be on Dragonstone and later when they take it.
To me, I would rather have her I would rather have her go to Dorne first, because Dorne and Highgarden, not Highgarden, Dorne and the Reach are like right next to each other, so their armies could consolidate and fucking push right up. If you see a map of Westeros, you'll see like it would have been much more logical. You're exactly right for her to go to Dorne, but I guess it's also symbolic and powerful. Plus, we need Jon, to go there, and I feel like I feel like someone in the writer room probably brought this up. And they're like, what? No, we need Jon and Dany to So
yeah, I mean, I guess they wanted to reuse the Stannis set, and
that too.
Though I don't know why they could have reused the Water Garden set, but I don't know. I think it would have been more interesting to be in Dorne, use Dorne a little.
To add on to your thing, what they should have done, if you think about it now, to add on to what you said, is have her go to Dorne, then go up, take Storm's End, take symbolic. Robert took her home, she takes Robert's home, and then as she goes up to take Dragonstone, Jon's already there. And instead of fighting her, Jon just lets her in as a sign of, look, I'm not looking for trouble, I'm not looking to fight anybody, this is what I'm doing here. And that's how their little dynamic could begin. So you could still have Jon going to Dragonstone without needing Dany there first.
Yeah. And one of the big problems with taking Dragonstone so early, too, is the whole season we're just sitting there going, why hasn't she conquered King's Landing? Like, why hasn't she done that? Mm-hmm. And if you put her farther away, you can draw that out as well. They had to make up these dumb excuses like, oh, well, we don't want to kill innocents. And you're like, but the dragons seem like pretty precision weaponry. Like, and we all just kind of sat back and went, huh? Why isn't this over? But so put them in Dorne, make the conquest gradual. Use the Dornish.
Make the conquest gradual. You take Storm's End. You take if the Reach, Dorne, and the Stormlands and Dragonstone are all under her control. I don't know. It seems like. It seems more powerful that way to make the people of King's Landing feel like they're being encircled to force Cersei's hand. I know, you're right. It would have been better.
All right, so number 2. Mm-hmm. I would have had an increased Varys presence, but the big thing was make Varys a historical Targaryen supporter. And that way, if you make him a historical Targaryen supporter, it explains the eggs. It explains Quaithe. You just say, oh, Quaithe was one of my compatriots. He can explain away the assassination attempt and say, you were never really in danger. Like, I had Jorah save you. That was all part of my plan. And he can also explain why he supported Viserys. And then he can say, oh, but it's gone beyond that, and now I appreciate you for being your own thing. But there's that first thing, like, why are you here? Why am I tolerating you? And Dany's like, you supported my brother and he was an idiot and you tried to kill me. And it wasn't really a great answer. But if you made Viserys a Targaryen supporter from the beginning, all of that is kind of solved. And the other thing about making Varys a Targaryen supporter is that if you have Qyburn eventually find this out about him, and you have Qyburn tell Jaime this information, like, oh, Varys was a Targaryen supporter, isn't it interesting that the day he let Tyrion, out of, or I'm sorry, he was a Targaryen supporter, and he also was the one that set up Shae to sleep with Tywin. Isn't it interesting that Tywin was sleeping with Shae the same night that you were released from prison. And then all of a sudden, Jaime would kind of realize that he was getting played by Varys, and it would make him want to reach out to Tyrion and request a meeting. And so that would play into it. This idea, that Varys is an enemy.
You want to ruin Tyrion and Varys's little friendship going there, because that would give him a lot of tension and conflict in the future.
It would. But the thing is, I push off Jaime and Tyrion's meeting until the end, but yeah, it's sort of like Jaime hates Tyrion, but then he kind of realizes that the Lannister family has been getting played, that people have been pinning the Lannister family against itself, which is kind of more of a book thing, like the Lannister family, they do great when they team up. Like when the Lannisters are all teamed up, they're unstoppable. I mean, look at the Blackwater. These, they all hated each other, but frickin' Tywin, Tyrion, and Cersei made it happen. And they won because they worked together. And so the only way to defeat the Lannisters is to pin them against each other. And you can kind of see like, oh, well, geez, like Varys set up this prostitute meeting the same night that he helped you break Tyrion from prison. Isn't that a big coincidence?
In an effort to weaken the Lannisters even more for the Targaryens to come back.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Would you also have Kevin survive season 6 finale only to be crossbowed by Varys?
I mean, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, the thing with my season 7 thing was I starting roughly in the same place and ending roughly in the same place was was what I was kind of doing. There's a couple things where I go very different, but the idea was you want all the characters roughly in the same place,
What I will say, one of the things that did you include a Varys backstory, because he's one of the characters whose backstories we haven't gotten yet.
I mean, I just sort of said that he's been working against Robert from the beginning, and he's always been a Targaryen supporter, and then so this would help endear him to Dany, but it would also help Jaime realize that he's been played. Once Qyburn reveals this, like it says, my little birds, they've told me some interesting stories about Varys. He's always been a Targaryen supporter, and he's been trying to fuck with your family. And then Jaime would realize that it's time to sort of reach out to Tyrion.
It's funny. I really do want to know why Varys, why the Targaryens, why? We still have not gotten his backstory in the books, have we? Like, we know a lot about him, like how he and Illyrio Mopatis, like they teamed up when they were younger, but we still don't know why he supports the Targaryens so much. Why specifically that family?
Well, I mean, some people say that Varys has Valyrian origins, that's why he shaves his head, and that some say he's a Blackfire, and that he and other things like that. But it's an interesting idea that yes, he shaves his head. Well, Egg from the Dunk and Egg books shaved his head to hide his silver hair, so Varys might have done the same, and so yeah. I mean, the fan theories is that he does have Valyrian roots, and that
would this fan theory come into your Varys storyline in first season 7?
Yeah. I mean, like in his little thing, he's like, "There's a reason I shaved my head." You may have met one of my compatriots, Quaithe. How do you think you got dragon eggs? Like it would all come together, and she would go, "Oh, I see." Though we now know that the show's never going to explain the dragon eggs or Illyrio or any of that, but or Quaithe.
Okay, so number one was Dany landing in Dorne. Number two is Varys is pulling more of the strings.
Yeah, okay. Varys Targaryen supporter. All right, 3. I would actually have, and this is rather important, that a big conflict be whether or not, big conflict would be in the Riverlands, actually, that I would have a big dispute over Harrenhal, and I would have, like, the phrase, ever since Walder died, like, breaking into fractions and breaking into factions and declaring for different people. And it sounds really confusing at first when I say it, like, oh, do we really need this extra thing? But by having the Riverlands be a focus, one, when you have battles and you have different stuff going on, you can eliminate all of the weird warping and travel times that we had in the show. Like, for instance, if you had Danny's army start in Dorne and then they kind of come up to the Riverlands, then later when Jaime gets ambushed, you didn't have the Dothraki warp from nowhere. They were there. But also, like, having the Riverlands be a conflict also gives tension for Sansa. So I would have Littlefinger encouraging Sansa, you need to invade south. You need to go south. And that gives Sansa, Davos, who would be leading the armies, like, he would be waiting in Moat Cailin, waiting for the orders to invade. It would create tension both in the north, and it would eliminate all of these warpings by having stuff go on in the Riverlands.
That makes sense, giving the Dothraki
yeah.
a base of operations on the mainland instead of just being
Exactly.
in ships. Like, where were they throughout? Like, before we saw them fight the Lannisters, where were they? Like, on ships? Like, were they all on Dragonstone? Like,
right. And then all of a sudden, people are warping constantly in it. That's all we made fun of it so much. But if you have them have a base of operation at Harrenhal, not only, like, Harrenhal is Littlefinger's. So the minute Littlefinger's like, oh, Dany conquered my castle, that's an act of war. And Sansa would be like, really? I don't know. And so there's these different things that Littlefinger can say to Sansa that says, what, you don't want to take, like, they're going to take Riverrun. You don't want to take your mother's house? Like, don't you care about the Tullys? And then that can be a split, like, oh, well, Jon is a Stark. No, he doesn't care about the Tullys. He always hated Catelyn. That's why he doesn't want to defend the Riverlands. Maybe I should. There would be that kind of tension to create, because there is the supposed the show tries to push forward this Targaryen Stark tension, but there's not much of it. But this would be a tension over the Riverlands. And it would eliminate all of the warping. So that was one big, having conflict in the Riverlands. 4, and this is a big one, and this is one that some people hated, but I really like, is so Brienne and Pod would have an adventure where Littlefinger would lie and say that there's dragonglass caves near Riverrun. And so Brienne would make this joke like, oh, I just came from Riverrun. But her and Pod would go back down there, and then when she finds out that there are no Riverrun caves of dragonglass, Pod would kill her in a big surprise.
how did I not see this coming?
Right. And then Pod would come back and say, oh no, like, to Jon and say, oh, the Freys killed Brienne. You should invade and avenge the Red Wedding and Brienne. And again, you'd have more tension. Like, should we invade south? But doesn't Daenerys hold the Riverlands and things like this? And that would be a conflict, between the Starks and the Targaryens, because Pod is actually secretly an agent of Littlefinger this whole time. And this would also lead, because Pod has the, kills Brienne and gets Oathkeeper. Oathkeeper eventually gets to Jon's possession. And so when Jon eventually makes it to King's Landing and returns it to Jaime, and, this is after he uncovers Pod, and has a big boss battle against Pod. Pod is actually, like, the best fighter in the world and nearly kills Jon.
You made Podrick like Arthur Dane?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like, this would be the big surprise. He needs some surprises. And then and then Jaime would say, how did she die? How did Brienne die? And Jon would say she was betrayed. And then Jon would say, I didn't know the Lannisters had, Valyrian steel swords. What's this one called? And Jaime would say, oh, it's Oathkeeper. And he'd be reminded of his oath. And that would help him. That would help Jaime go north. It didn't seem right that Jaime went north all of a sudden. But, like, this reminder, Brienne dying and being presented the sword again and hearing the name Oathkeeper, that would remind him, like, oh, I've got to keep my oath. I've got to protect Sansa.
But how does Jon know Oathkeeper belongs to Jaime?
Because it's got a freaking lion head pummel. That's why.
Okay, I'm trying to keep
he
you on your
figures it out.
toes.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's clearly a Lannister sword. Yeah.
You're gonna get so much fucking hate for, like, Podrick and shit. You know what? That'd be great though.
Yeah.
That'd be great if, like, Podrick is better than Arthur Dane. He uses 3 swords, 1 in his mouth and, like, 2 on his hand.
I'm just saying, like, think about what Brienne and Pod did this season. jack and shit. Like nothing. So yeah, it would be incredible just to have a little plot. This whole time, Pod was a Littlefinger agent. Killed Brienne. What a shocker. Plus, they're all gonna die next season anyway. We gotta kill them off. We gotta kill them off like slowly.
Is Podrick not Qyburn's son in this one?
No. Littlefinger's agent. Though, yeah, that'd be pretty interesting as well.
As much as I would fucking hate that, because I love the little guy. I don't know why I keep thinking of why do I keep thinking of Podrick as a little guy? Every time I think of Podrick, to me he's like
you're in the book. Podrick in the book is a little kid.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, no, I always think of Podrick as like a little kid. I always think it's so weird how he's like so good with the ladies. But no, that would make sense though. Podrick being a Littlefinger agent, because originally Podrick was assigned to be Tyrion's I want to say squire.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that would make sense. That Podrick is a way for Littlefinger to keep tabs of Tyrion.
Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, number 5. And this is what to do with Arya for the whole season. Is essentially I'd have the first half of the season be her go to Casterly Rock, to 1 kill Ilan Payne, but 2 try to rescue her uncle. So Ilan Payne would be Castellan of Casterly Rock, and some people are like, "But Ilan Payne's illiterate and can't speak. Why would he be a horrible Castellan?" I'd be like, "No, he's the perfect Castellan for someone like Cersei, who's power hungry and doesn't want anyone challenging her power. Like she would put in like just somebody who couldn't possibly rebel against her because he can't write or speak." So she pops in Ilan Payne as Castellan of Casterly Rock, and Arya, wanting to finish her death list, goes there. Plus, she hears that her uncle Edmure is there and that she's going to rescue him. And then she goes into Casterly Rock, and she has, the choice she decides to first go kill Ilan Payne, and she does. And then she goes down to find Edmure, and Edmure's been executed, and they said that was their orders if anything went wrong, if anyone attacked Ilan, to execute the prisoners. And she would feel a little guilty that she chose revenge over saving her family. And that would be like a big like punch in the gut for Arya. You could have saved your uncle first, but you chose to kill Ilan Payne, and it led to your uncle's death. And so we get rid of a character, and we go on her death list, and we give Arya something to do.
I gotta disagree with you on that. I would keep Edmure alive. What I would do is I would have Arya sneak into Casterly Rock, just as she does. She uses Dany's fleet that's attacking Casterly Rock, trying to siege the place, as a way to get in there. Through chaos, she could sneak in, kill Ilan Payne, which would help Dany out amazingly, because without the commander there, everybody would be a little disorganized. And maybe she could save Edmure, or maybe Dany's forces save Edmure. I don't know. By the end of the whole series, I want most of the High Lords of Westeros to still be alive, so they could all pledge their fealty to whoever comes out on top. I don't know. I feel like killing Edmure would be a little unnecessary, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm just trying to kill everybody off. I'm trying to kill everybody off. I thought that was the point.
Is that the point?
War is bad. War is bad, and thus everyone's gonna get killed off.
I guess
that's what I was doing. That's why I was trying to kill people off.
All right.
And then for the second half of the season, I just kind of have Arya heading towards Winterfell and arriving in the last episode. Her running into people and finding out that Rickon died and things like that, and feeling sad about it, mourning things, on her way.
So you're removing completely the Sansa and Arya stupid argument thing.
Yes. No, I have Arya arriving in the last episode at Winterfell. I mean, she can meet Hot Pie. She could stop by Moat Cailin and run into. I would have Davos there. Run into Davos. She can she can have all sorts of different run-ins on her way there. But the idea is that have her get to Winterfell at the end of the season, and then we don't have to have all this ridiculous hanging out in Winterfell with nothing to do.
Gotcha.
Yes. So 6. How to fix the Citadel. So with the Citadel, I had Sam would go to classes. Obara is there instead of Sorella Sand, pretending to be a boy, befriending Sam. And when Jorah arrives, he hears a rumor that that Jorah Mormont arrived, and he's like, "Oh my God, really?" And because of his last name, Sam seeks him out, finds that he has grayscale. Jorah explains that he's quarantined until and he's imprisoned there until he dies. And so Sam sneaks in, cures his grayscale, is caught. He and Obara are caught, and they're all quarantined together. And then while being quarantined, he explains his story north of the wall and his relationship with Gior, and he totally convinces Jorah that about the White Walkers, and because he saves Jorah's life, he kind of has a life debt to Sam, and so Jorah is going to be the one that returns to Dragonstone and convinces Dany to team up with Jon because of Sam's influence over him. So that's how I kind of fix the Citadel.
I don't really see the point in putting in Obara. I had a buddy of mine who saw your video. He goes, "What the fuck is with him and this Sorella Sand, dude?" I gotta agree. I would not put Obara in the Citadel. But
no, see, it's using the Dornish. This gets back to point one. You got to use the Dornish. You can't just kill them off. You introduce these frivolous characters and then you kill them off immediately. What a freaking waste of time. No, use them a little more, and then people won't hate him as much.
But instead of having Obara there, shouldn't you just introduce Sorella Sand as one of Sam's best buddies that he met at the Citadel, and then we later find out that?
Well, then we're just introducing more characters. Plus, see, if I have Obara there, then I can send Obara north of the wall with Jorah, and then Obara can get killed north of the wall.
Okay.
Instead of Thoros. This is the idea, right?
Okay, continue.
Right? That's it. All worked. No, I had Obara. Plus, I had Obara searching for Fire and Blood. That Oberyn had told her about Fire and Blood, and that and so they get that tome, and then they've got some more secret knowledge because later on, season 7. They're gonna all of a sudden Sam is gonna pull out some random book that he found. It's gonna have some information in it. If you had Obara searching for Fire and Blood, the tome, then it would make more sense that Sam's eventually gonna have that in his possession. Mm-hmm. With some knowledge.
All right.
So that's the reason she's there. She's searching for Fire and Blood. She hears about Sam's story. She gets hooked up with Jorah. They go north of the wall. It solves so much on why Dany would switch over to Jon's side, and it makes Jorah and Sam's meeting significant. 7. This is essentially how to depower Dany. So the big problem is that Dany's way too powerful at the beginning of the season, and we don't really buy, and Cersei has no power, and so how can we turn the tables? And I would have the tables turned by, while Dany's forces are marching north, she's off conquering Dragonstone. Mm-hmm. I have her forces led by Randall Tarley and Lady Nym, and then I would have Qyburn's Little Birds give an offer from Cersei saying, if you turn, you will become Lord of the Reach. You'll become Lady of Dorne. And both Lady Nym and Randall Tarley betray Dany and turn on her. And that's the major way they sort of depower her, is by having this civil war in Dany's forces.
I really can't see Lady Nym betraying her mom's cause, because her mom I forgot, Illaria's not her mom, but I really can't see Lady Nym betraying Illaria.
Well, I mean, why? We haven't been given any personality for any of the Sand Snakes, so how can you base that on anything? Why couldn't Lady Nym be somebody that could betray anybody?
I don't know. She doesn't come off as that type of shady douche, but
what makes it interesting is that you think all the Sand Snakes are peas in the pod, but instead Obara is running off with Jorah Tyene is staying loyal, and Lady Nim is betraying him. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, the Sand Snakes are different. You know?
The one thing I like that idea, but the one thing I would change is Randall Tarley betrays, and then he kills Lady Nim before she could even make a decision.
But then how can he lead the Dornish forces? Wouldn't the Dornish forces be like, what?
He would either ambush them or they would just go home.
Maybe, yeah.
Kind of like the Karstarks did.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, however you do it. And then when Dany finally catches Randall Tarley and defeats him in the field, she has a reason to burn him alive.
Yeah.
Because she's like, you fucker. Mm-hmm. You know? And I mean, in my story, she would burn Lady Nim. So whether Randall Tarley like kills Lady Nim or whether she gets burned later, it doesn't matter. But I just wanted the Dornish, again, the Dornish to be interesting and be utilized. And so and this would be a way to depower Dany, is by having a little rebellion within.
What's that? You don't want to drink toast to the Sand Snakes dying at Euron's hands? You don't want to be like every other generic YouTuber who reviewed that episode?
Yeah. No, I mean, the Sand Snakes sucked. That doesn't mean, like, you just kill them off.
Right.
I mean, it's the same. Like, if I was watching Attack of the Clones and then in the first 10 minutes, like, Jar Jar Binks, like, falls into an engine and gets chopped up, I wouldn't be like, woo! Some people would, but I'd be like, why'd you introduce a character just to have him chopped up? Like, that would be dumb, you know? Like, in fact, I'm actually kind of annoyed at the prequels that Jar Jar just disappeared. Like, he was used a little bit in Attack of the Clones. But
I can actually answer that. Are we gonna go off a little Star Wars there for just a minute?
I mean, isn't the whole thing that he got fan feedback and didn't like him?
Yeah, and so Lucas removed him. Well, not really removed him. They gave him one of the most defining moments in the entire prequel trilogy by giving emergency powers to the Chancellor. Actually, in the Star Wars book Aftermath, we actually find out what happens to Jar Jar, and that he is a poor beggar who juggles to make kids smile. And then we later find out that I think he's still on Naboo, and every citizen of Naboo hates the shit out of him because he helped the Galactic Empire rise to power. So people just ignore him and shun him, but he loves entertaining the kids. So that is his fate, is to be...
Well, that's sad.
Okay, but back to Game of Thrones. What's number 8?
All right. Number 8. So one big thing was, like, why isn't Dany invading Dragonstone or invading King's Landing? So I give a reason for this. So while many of her forces are marching by land, her sea forces take Dragonstone and then decide to come in for a naval assault that's supposed to be at the same time as the land assault, right? So the Civil War with Randall Tarley betraying him screws up the land assault, and the sea assault gets screwed up because of Euron's sneak attack, but also, you know, he's got a ballista on one of his ships. And she gets spooked, you know, like she gets spooked and she freaks out and she cancels the attack. And like, that's the reason is that she's not attacking King's Landing, is because she almost gets hit with a ballista and she freaks out and she hears that in King's Landing, Cersei has a whole bunch of them, and that, you know, she feels really, she's scared. Also, I would have Grey Worm die in that aborted assault, so that Dany feels really guilty that she ran and flew away while Grey Worm was killed at sea. Like, you know, just give her a little turmoil, give her, you know, something, and that would explain why she's like reluctant to attack King's Landing, because of these ballistas. You know, she's scared of getting killed.
Okay.
You know, what they really have is that, you know, instead they have I mean, they have it a little bit with Tyrion, you know, trying to instill fear into Dany, but the main reason for not assaulting King's Landing is not burning the people, which again doesn't really make sense. So I don't know. That's why I have her not doing King's Landing. Number 9. Number 9, I have the military movements. This all connects with the Riverlands, but with so I've already talked about this where I wouldn't have anybody warping around. But if you watch my video, like I don't have anybody doing warps. Like all of the military movements are logical, time wise.
All about occupying certain strongholds and areas.
Yeah, like I don't have the fleets going around the continent. I don't have people warping all over the place. I everything kind of makes sense. So 10 is the one I really wish you would have watched the Littlefinger part of it, because it's about how I bring down Littlefinger. Okay. How Sansa brings down Littlefinger.
Okay, as long as you're having Sansa bring down Littlefinger. All right, I'm on board. Let's go.
I have Sansa riddle out that Littlefinger sent the Catspaw to kill Bran. And she does this by taking the information she knows. Like Bran tells her that, I think there was this letter that Lady Lysa sent to our mother. And then Sansa would check the records and find, oh yes, a rider did arrive. But wait a minute, all of this doesn't make sense. Like, why would Lysa be sending a letter to my mother unless she was told to by Littlefinger? And she would eventually puzzle out that. I do like it's like honestly a 7-minute scene that I've put into this video of Littlefinger and Sansa talking and her puzzling out that Littlefinger is the one that sent the Catspaw, and her deciding that he needs to be killed.
In my opinion, what I think is like one of the perfect Littlefinger being caught by Sansa, which is he has the dagger with him constantly, all the time, and he uses it to peel like oranges and whatever. And the only reason nobody knows that it's him who sent the Catspaw is because everybody who saw the dagger is dead. Maester Luwin, Catelyn, Ned. But I would have like Theon come back at the very end, bringing Jon and Dany up to Winterfell, and he eventually meets up with Sansa, and they have their little moment, and he notices Littlefinger has the dagger. And if you remember, Theon was there when Catelyn came to everybody in Winterfell about the whole thing. So Theon would be part of the key to outing Littlefinger.
Oh, well, that would be fun.
Because Theon,
that'd be really fun.
Theon was in the meeting in the Godswood in Winterfell when Catelyn was showing everybody.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, no, I like that. That would give Theon something to do. If you warped him back up to Winterfell, but that's yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. The way I do it, I have Sansa realize that. So during Tyrion's trial, Lysa doesn't pick the best fighter in the Vale. She picks an average fighter to defend Tyrion because she wanted Tyrion to win, because she didn't want conflict. And so the question is, if Lysa didn't want conflict, why would she send this letter to Cat instilling conflict, unless Littlefinger's the one that really told her to write that letter, because he's the one that controls her. And so, it kind of gets into like, oh. And it also, she puzzles out that Littlefinger is the one that sent the dagger because he has spies everywhere, and so he would have a spy in Winterfell and would have known that Bran fell. And so while everyone else in Winterfell was kind of loyal to either the Lannisters or the Baratheons or the Starks, his agent in Winterfell is the only one that could have like sent the Catspaw. Mm-hmm. Was the idea. And the other thing was, and then he's like, well, wait a minute, why couldn't it be one of Varys' agents or one of Doran Martell's agents, because they have spies everywhere? And she says, because Maester Luwin's notes say that the last thing that the guy said was, you weren't supposed to be here. Why would one of Doran Martell's agents or Varys' agents try to spare my mother? The only person that loved my mother and would want her spared would be you. And so she kind of puzzles out that, oh yeah, no, it's Littlefinger. Ah, and so
clever.
And so then then I'd have her execute him with a sword in the same circle that Will was executed in the first episode. So there'd be, some
Really, you would have her
you
swing
know,
the sword?
absolutely, absolutely.
That would so. When does Sansa get a great sword arm that she can chop someone's head off in one clean strike?
You get a really sharp sword. It's got to be really sharp, and then she gets it through. And if you want a funny scene where it takes several strokes to go through, that'd be great too. But the idea is that everyone's expecting a man to fill Ned's shoes, but here Sansa is in that same circle, swinging the sword herself. That's being the Lady of Winterfell, like that. That's how I'd want it done. Yeah.
That's the one thing I would change. I would have Theon out him, tell him what he knows, but her whole sentence would be that she would exile him. I would keep our original idea on this, where she would exile him, but he gets no horse. He gets to keep all. He doesn't even get to take his shit. All he has to walk out of Winterfell with the clothes he has on his back, and you see him walking into the woods, into the dark woods, with the thought that he's gonna die. There's no way. Exposed to the elements, he's gonna die. There's no way he's gonna survive this. But there's always that hint in the back of your head that he could come back sometime. Maybe.
He could Captain Phasma.
No, it's just I would keep him alive because mainly he did help Sansa. And remember that Robb Stark said to, I think it was Theon, my father knew how to show mercy when it called for it. And I feel like Sansa killing him would, in a sense, defeat the purpose of her overcoming him. Because death is easy. But now he has to live with knowing that a little girl defeated him. Okay, but let's go. Number 11.
So, number 11, how I'd fix North of the Wall is I'd have it be an Uncle Benjen rescue mission. That when the Hound had his vision, he would say, when the Hound and Jon meet each other at Eastwatch, and I would have Dany fly north because she wants to take a look at this army of the dead. They're not going to capture a white. They're going north to let Dany see the army of the dead. She's like, I want to see these things with my own eyes. I can just fly up there. So they go up to Eastwatch, and they run into the Hound, and the Hound's like, we had a vision. I had a vision of your fricking uncle, the one I saw at the wedding feast, and John's like, what? You saw Uncle Benjen? And he's like, yeah, and so they figure out he's in this village. And Jon tells Dany, a specific amount of time. He's like, look, give us 3 days or, come after us in a certain amount of time because I want to try to rescue my uncle before you just start torching everything. And then they go ahead and they find Uncle Benjen. And Uncle Benjen says, they finally find him. He's tied up in this wildling village. And he says, no, don't you understand? It was a trap. Who do you think sent the vision? The Night King sent the vision. And they realize, oh crap. And then the horde will come after them and then they can be running. But because they told Dany to come to meet them in a certain amount of time, a rendezvous time, she has a reason to show up at a certain time, not just kind of out of nowhere. And then you can have the dragon die and all that stuff.
You said Uncle Benjen from the wedding feast? What wedding feast? You mean from the
not the wedding feast. I'm sorry. The king's feast, the king's arrival feast in
episode 1
in a Game of Thrones in episode 1. Yeah, that the Hound would remember Benjen from that wedding, and he remembers him in the vision. He's like, I saw your uncle, and then Jon would say, what? You saw my Yeah, and then they would go on a Benjen rescue mission, which is why, he wanted to go alone without a dragon because he needed to sneak into a village quietly to try to get Uncle Benjen because there's whites in the village. So they want to sneak in, and then they realize that it's a trap and there's a whole lot more whites. But that's how I would fix that, rather than going out to capture a white and then ending up on that island with the freezing water and then the supersonic ravens and it's just, say what you. I'm not saying it's this Uncle Benjen rescue mission is the best idea, but it's a fuckload better than what we saw. So, and then finally, the final number 12, what I'd do So, I found that Bran's reveal that Lyanna and Rhaegar were in love and secretly married to be really, really dumb. So, and a letdown. So I would have the big surprise that Bran eventually finds out, and I would have him go and find Howland Reed and have Howland Reed tell him this. But nonetheless, I would have the big reveal be that it wasn't Rhaegar that kidnapped Lyanna. It was Lyanna that seduced Rhaegar. That yes, everyone knew that Rhaegar was obsessed with prophecy. But what people didn't know is that Lyanna was more obsessed with prophecy. That she would actually spend all this time in the Winterfell library reading about prophecy. And that she sought out Rhaegar. That he didn't kidnap her, she sought out him. And she's the one that convinced him that he should leave his wife and go with her. And that she convinced Rhaegar to go to Aerys and have the heir switched from Viserys or Rhaegar to their unborn child. And that rather than it being like the High Septon annulled it bullshit, like in a secret ceremony, that it was Lyanna's scheme the whole time to switch the heir to Jon. And that she is the one that actually manipulated Rhaegar, not the reverse. And that's the reason Ned kept everything a secret, is that there's just way too many, like, there's so many different relationships and tensions going on, especially with the Dornish and pinning the Dornish against the Starks.
So you would like make Lyanna an asshole, really?
I mean, the choice is, it's either Rhaegar's the asshole or Lyanna. But, I mean, I'd switch it up. I'd make it, because what we have is this damsel in distress, which gets turned into like this cheesy love story, but it's so traditional. Like Lyanna is still this damsel, this like, and that's not Lyanna. Like Lyanna is this strong, forceful woman, right? Like that's the Lyanna from the book. In this case, she's the one with all of the power. She's the one that sought out Rhaegar. She's the one that took control. She's the one that Rhaegar didn't cause Robert's Rebellion. Lyanna caused Robert's Rebellion. Like that's the switch I would have.
That's the twist.
Yeah, you have it be something interesting like that. That no one was expecting. And then it also like explains more. Like if we're gonna have Jon be king, like the High Septon annulling shit is stupid. Like have her convince Rhaegar to convince the king to switch the heir.
And then 13 would be the Hound digging the grave.
And the 13 is the Hound digging the grave.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. It seems like you really want there to be a twist back in Thrones. Like a lot of the stuff you have is utilizing characters that are there just to be there, which I don't blame you for doing. Obar, the Sand Snakes, Brienne, Podrick, just putting characters in certain places they need to be there.
Yeah.
I can really tell that you are clamoring for a twist, that you are wanting to bring characters back. I see, just hearing your fix, I already know, like, your annoyances with the entire show. They bring out characters and we barely ever see them. Like, Ilan Payne the guy doesn't have cancer anymore, from what I hear, but we haven't seen him.
Yeah, bring him back.
Yeah, bring him back. And, now I understand where you're coming from a lot of these fixes. How much shit did you get, though, in the comment section? I know you don't read your comments that much, but how much shit did you get? How much do you think?
I mean, most people liked it because obviously my viewership is it's biased because my viewership is of course going to like my stuff. A few people were like, a few of the snarky comments you get are like real basic ones like, no, this is worse than the show. And then you get, but the main criticism that people had was the pod stuff. Like that's the stuff they didn't like. I think people like. Generally people liked the Lyanna stuff. They liked the idea of the quarantine idea. Some people complain that Ilan Payne wouldn't be a Castellan. That he's illiterate and he wouldn't. Cersei wouldn't put him there, but I think he would be put there. But I think people liked the idea of, Varys being a Targaryen supporter. I think people liked the idea of landing in Dorne, having Stannis and forces with Melisandre still being there. things like that. I think people liked the Liana thing.
The remnant of Stannis' forces.
Yeah, the remnant of Stannis' forces. They have a lot of people really liked the Littlefinger dagger thing that I did, and stuff like that. But yeah, the stuff I got crap for is Ilan Payne and Pod.
Mm-hmm.
Like people didn't like those parts, but other than that, everything else seemed to be okay.
Like I said, the whole Podrick thing you can explain pretty easy. Littlefinger wants to keep an eye on Tyrion, so Podrick, being Tyrion's squire, being a Littlefinger spy, that would make sense if it turned out to be true. Him being the best sword fighter, I don't know about that, like, I'd have to call bullshit on that one.
Why not? Why not? Wouldn't that be funny?
I can see him...
All this time he's been like training with Brienne. He's just been like, this is boring as hell. I could take you down at any moment.
I can see him pulling a Tyene where he like stabs her right in the back in like the precise area that he needs to.
Well, that's how I had him take out Brienne. But I suppose what they're like, wait, later you want like a sword fight between Jon and Pod? And I was like, yeah, totally. That'd be incredible. And it turns out he's like the second best fighter after Clubfoot Carl.
I actually do like that scene where Clubfoot Carl does fight Jon. Lord Snow, you're bringing me back for trial. I love that scene.
I love the ranking. Like the rankings, like people debate all the time in the forums, like who's the best fighter. And it's funny because if you go by the show, everyone's like, well, Clubfoot Carl is clearly number one. Because he was totally killing Jon. But Clubfoot Carl, best fighter in Westeros.
All right, Preston, let's close this up. This is the last episode of the year. And I gotta say, thank you for joining me on this crazy ride. You've been a trooper all of 2017 in terms of the podcast. Guys, definitely check out Preston's Fixing Season 7 video. I'll leave a link in the description below. Because some of the stuff you did say, I feel like a lot of it is has to be within context, and you have to watch the whole video to kind of get more of a feel for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, Preston, will we be back for 2018? Will you join me again for the Game of Thrones podcast in 2018?
Sure, of course we're doing 2018. It's happening. Even though there's going to be no Game of Thrones in 2018, but we're still going to talk about it.
We did record a Last Jedi episode, a special little spin-off podcast thing where we both talk about Star Wars, and we'll be doing more of other types of content as well. You wanted to do like a Westworld type of thing?
Yeah, I was thinking that we could definitely get into Westworld, because there will be Westworld in 2018, but no Game of Thrones.
I'm completely okay with not having Thrones in 2018. Really, I am. I'm completely okay with taking a year off. That is absolutely fine to me. But we will still do the Game of Thrones podcast, talk about whatever you guys want us to talk about. And we're also going to do spin-off episodes of the Thrones podcast. Still going to call it Thrones podcast, where we will discuss other stuff too. If you guys are interested in that, as always, we're on SoundCloud and iTunes. Definitely check us there. Preston, any last words for 2017?
Well, actually, real quick, what do you think? This is not Thrones related, but what do you think was the best series of 2017?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I don't know. That
What's the best thing you saw in 2017?
Oh fuck!
How about best movie, best episode, anything you want?
I have to.
Best thing you saw.
Oh shit! I don't know. That is a good one. I haven't seen a lot of movies. Can you believe that? I have not seen a lot of movies. Best something I've seen in... Damn, you got me there. That's a good one. I don't know.
You want to know mine? You know mine. I've told you mine.
Is it Dunkirk?
No.
What is it?
It's Leftovers. I think Leftovers is the best thing of 2017. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Leftovers, really?
You didn't. How could you say that? You didn't even watch it.
I don't know what my fucking friend. You know what? You know what's something I've actually wanted to watch, but I haven't gotten into. But I can't get into it. Mindhunters. Everybody's saying, dude, Mindhunters is amazing. It's the show on Netflix about the serial killers. I don't know. I just can't get into it. Have you seen Mindhunters yet?
No.
Nah.
I have not.
Damn Damn, I do not know what my... Oh, that's going to be... Oh, fuck you, dude. That's...
See, now you have to think about it. It's funny that you can laugh at my choice when you haven't seen it. Like, Leftovers Season 3 is... Like, even looking back at it now, I'm just like, man, that was so fucking good. So fucking good. Leftovers Season 3. Leftovers Season 1 and 2 are pretty good, but Leftovers Season 3 is just fucking brilliant. Man, it's fucking great.
But any last words you have for 2017s for the audience, for our podcast audience? Watch Leftovers.
I guess this watch Leftovers. Hope 2018 goes pretty well. You know, we got some impeachments to look forward to. It's gonna be good times. 2017.
The last Trump comment from you of the year. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this year. I really do appreciate it. We will see you again for 2018, and have a good, happy holidays.